Hi everyone, it is Tanya Hertz here, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about leadership. And we're just going to jump right in and get going on our leadership slides. So leadership is the ability by a person of influence in an organization, particularly to influence others, to use their power, and also to avoid the unwanted influence of others. And people, in order to use power, people need to choose to influence others. And when we're talking about power, we're talking about influence, it's just as important to resist as it is to direct or control others' behavior. So not just getting people to do what you want, but not doing what they want if it doesn't align with what you want. Right. So there are 5 primary types of leadership that we're going to go over. They can be broken into 2 overarching categories, and those are personal power and organizational or legitimate power. And the organizational power is derived from that position in an organization. So just having a particular title in an organization, we call this legitimate power, position power. That's one type of organizational power. We also have the power in organizations to reward others or to punish. So reward power, we're able to control resources like their pay, things that they want in an organization. And coercive power is essentially punishing, right? And you want to be careful using coercive power too much. There's a time to use every type of different power or influence tactic, but when you use a lot of coercive power, it does lead to feelings of negativity towards those who are using this type of power. And personal power is perhaps even more important than the organizational power, and that comes from the person themselves. Regardless of what position they have in the company, there are certain people who just exert power, and it comes intrinsically from the person themselves, and it can come from their expertise, and it also can come from their charisma, right? Referent power is essentially charisma. That's when other people want to be identified with a particular person, be around a particular person, associated with them. This is like celebrity power, right? So again, all of the types of power combined influence our ability to control and influence others. And it's important, no matter what your position is in the organization, that you know how to maximize your chances of exerting power, of getting people to do what you want them to do. So how do we use our influence? Well, first of all, what is influence? It's the use of the actual behavior that causes other people to change either their behaviors or their attitudes. And typically influence is directional and relative. So by directional, we mean it typically flows in an organization top down, but it can be lateral, it can be side to side, and it can be upward. Different types of tactics are better depending on which direction you're trying to influence. And influence is all relative, right? The absolute power of the influencer is not necessarily relative, but the disparity between the influencer and the influencee, or the person being influenced, is relative. So there are some factors we need to consider when we're thinking about influence or talking about influence that will have an impact or mitigate your power. And those contingency factors are substitutability. So a leader's power increases when there are no substitutes for the rewards that he or she has control over. I think all of us have dealt with those people who have just a little tiny bit of power and they just run with it, right? They do. They're loving that little bit of power that they can influence over other people. And even though their absolute power is very, very, very little, because they control the only access to one particular resource, it makes them a nightmare to deal with, right? That's because there's no substitutability. You see this at the DMV, right? Centrality has an effect on power. And we know that leader power will increase when the role is important, and when it's interdependent with others in the organization. So a very central, very critical role that gives you power. And it also increases, that power also increases when everybody knows that you have the discretion to do what you want with that power. When you can fire people, when you can increase their pay, when you have really do truly have control over those resources and discretion, the choice of how to use them. And then, of course, visibility. You can't lead from a closet, right? People need to know that you have power in order for you to really truly have that power. So the more visible your role is, the more visible your power is, the more power it generates, right? And there are particular tactics that we can use as influencers, as people of power, that are more effective than others. And these tactics, the influence tactics, are so remember when we said it's directional, influence is directional and lateral. So these types of influence tactics actually work well, even going from a position, a low position in an organization, up, right, to people above you, people who typically would tend to have more power. So these types of persuasion work well, like on teachers, on people, supervisors, executives above you in an organization even. So rational persuasion is one of the most effective tactics, and that's using logic, using hard facts to show that the request makes sense. Inspirational appeals are also extremely effective, and this is why people work for entrepreneurs. Right? They're inspired by what these people are doing, not that they can pay them necessarily, or not because of any self-serving means, except for the fact that people can see the vision that the leader has and wants to support that vision and push that that dream that they're having into a reality. Consultation is also very effective, and that's asking the participant to actually be a part of the decision-making process. So you see this, I always think of this when we're trying to get kids to eat, right? So I'll have my nieces and nephews over, and a couple of them are kind of picky eaters. If you get them to help make the food, they'll eat the food, right? So the same is true in business. If you want your employees to do something, have them be a part of the process, and they're more likely to get on board and do it. And then collaboration is just you as the leader making it easier for that person to do the request by helping, right? It's not like I'm delegating to you and you take care of it. No, we're going to do it together, and that can be an effective tactic. So a little bit less effective, but still effective, can be ingratiation. So ingratiation is using our words, our compliments, being friendly, to really make the people feel better about you, about themselves, and then more likely to help you. Now, ingratiation only works when it is authentic, and it is not just immediately preceding the event or the request, and never again or never before. So by that I mean, you can't say like, I love that sweater, James. It's just looks so good on you. By the way, can you work late tonight? James will get the idea that I'm just saying I like his sweater because I want him to, to work late. So ingratiation can work when it's authentic and you're friendly and nice, and it's not just immediately preceding. So personal appeals are relying on our friendship, loyalty to one another in order to help each other out, can be pretty effective. Exchange tactics also, they can be effective when you say, will you work late? In exchange, I'll go pick up the pizza and sodas and whatever, basically exchanging this for that. Or apprising is also pretty effective, saying, well, it would help you to work late because you get paid extra, or telling them basically what's in it for them. It can be a somewhat effective tactic. All right, the least effective tactics tend to be harder, not as soft tactics, and they work, but they're better used in smaller doses. And those are things like using pressure, using coercive force, harsh language, threats, demands, or coalitions saying to other people, hey, help me to influence this person. So that we can kind of get them to do what we want them to do. That works, but it's better to use those softer and kinder tactics, because if you use constantly hard tactics to get people to do what you want them to do, so stay later, you're fired, it works, but it leads to some pretty negative feelings towards the influencer. All right, so we're gonna stop that there. We have video about conflict resolution, negotiation when we come back. Thanks so much.